Hi there everybody, welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict. We're going to concentrate this week on Haydock Park on Saturday, the Betfair Sprint Cup being the feature event, and also on an excellent card at Kempton. I must give a nod to some really good action at York on Sunday, and that is well worth reviewing. But we'll concentrate on the big meeting at Haydock and at Kempton on Saturday afternoon. We're going to start at Haydock Park. And this was the card. A Superior Mile got us underway. We had the Old Borough Cup handicap. We had the Brtfair Sprint Cup as well. The Ascendant Stakes listed, a race card chock full of quality. The big one at 3:35. And these are the winners. Holloway Boy, of course, he won on debut at Royal Ascot, taking the Chesham as a 2-year-old. He's won again, taking the opening contest under William Buick. Time was pretty good too. Master Builder, slowish time, winning the 150. We'll have a look at him shortly. Epic Poet took the Old Borough Cup. Chagrin won the Be Friendly. Montassob took the big one for William Haggis in a really good time. He's a Betfair Sprint Cup winner now. Luther, who featured on The Verdict a few weeks ago, he won the 407. Napand and Obelix completed the winners on the card on a day when the ground was pretty good. Those times suggest that it was good to firm, really. There were a couple of slowly run races producing poor times, as highlighted by the Race IQ Time Index for the meeting. The first one we're going to look at is Master Builder, the 1 3/4 second contest, 5.18 he scored. The average for the meeting was 5.87. That's a bit below what you would expect for the class of race that he was running in. We then look at some better times as we go to Chagrin, race 4. It was over 5 furlongs, better than the average for the day at 7.24. That's a really good time then. The best time, though, belonging to Montassob in the Betfair Sprint Cup, 7.67. Sprint Cup that was very strongly run. And we'll have a look at Luther. That's race number 6, over a mile. And that was a poor time, but he won in good style. So we'll start our analysis with the second race on the card at Haydock on Saturday and the success of Master Builder. He came out of stall number 8 and he beat Contacto from 9, and Hutchins came from stall 6 and finished back in 3rd spot. It looked like the intention from the off was to take a pull and get him settled in behind. William Buick was the man on board, and indeed his 0 to 20 mile an hour figure, according to the Race IQ data, was 2.78 seconds, which meant he was 4th fastest into stride. But William soon took a pull and got him dropped in at the back of the field, and he was taking a bit of a risk, because if he was going to get a very steady pace scenario, it wasn't necessarily going to suit him. And this track normally suits horses who are a little bit more prominent, certainly when they turn into the home straight. But he's in last and he's going to ride him for luck. Now, this was a bit of a funny race in terms of the gallop. It was uneven according to the Race IQ data. Essentially, it was slow to par early on. Then they really speed up down the back straight. They were fast for 3 furlongs down the back straight. And then it slowed up again round the bend, and then they went again. So it was all a bit stop-start, the gallop out there. And therefore, I think we have to mark up this winner. Look where he is, sat last at this stage. He's got an awful lot to do. He really, given the gallop, ought to be a little bit nearer. But he's got a great turn of foot, and he'll show it in the home straight. He ran very well when he was 3rd in the Melrose. That was his best career effort. But I put it to you that this has bettered that. And the speed that he showed down the outside of the field was most taking, and he's going to make up into a really nice stayer next year, because he gets a trip and he also can quicken up. He's got a lot of knee curl, which suggests that he's always going to perhaps want just a little bit of ease in the ground. He wouldn't want it sort of summer rattling fast like you can get at Royal Ascot sometimes. And you can see they're getting their toe in, looking at the divots that they're kicking up. This is where the speed just increased a little bit down the back, and they started to get a little bit more strung out. You see the leaders just kicked on a bit and gained 2 or 3 lengths on the rest of the field. Buick raced in 10th place in a race where every single horse recorded a finishing speed percentage over 100%. So what he's going to do in the home straight, and we'll look at it closely in a minute, is he's going to go past every single horse, but they're not stopping. They are finishing quite strongly with an FSP of over 100. They're running the final 3 furlongs quicker than they ran the rest of the race. So he's running down horses that are not stopping, and that makes this an impressive effort. William decides not to go inside, really. He's always looking to the outside to come with his run. And this is where Master Builder begins to pick up. The pace is quickening once they've gone round the bend where they steadied, and now he comes home really strongly. His final 3 furlongs, 35.53. The runner-up, 36.32. He's way quicker in the final 3 furlongs. His 12th furlong, 11.37. That's what shot him from the back of the field to be in contention. That was the fastest furlong in the race and got him there. Upsides Contacto with the sheepskin noseband. And then he runs on really strongly thereafter. His 110.68, his finishing speed percentage. Wow. Courtesy of that 11.37 in the 12th furlong. He's finished off really well. Over 10% quicker in the last 3 furlongs than he was in the rest of the race. This is impressive stuff from Master Builder. David Menuisier is a master with this sort of horse. Remember what he did with Chaos Chorister. He's really good with these horses. He takes his time with them. He finds the right races. And this horse has responded in spades to William Buick. I really liked his finishing effort. Here's his win time, scrolling along the bottom of your screen. It's 140.21, so he's 0.23 under the Race IQ par. So he's under what you might expect for a race of this quality at Haydock on this ground. So it's not too bad a performance. The overall time analysis was that it was a par one, and that's because the gallop was a bit uneven and a bit messy. But it's the finishing effort we should concentrate on. That final 3 furlongs of 35.53, way better than his rivals. Look how he surges past Contacto with that sheepskin noseband, and he's won this in style. Not sure where he'll go after this. He does hold an entry in Ireland in about a week's time. I'm not sure he'll be going for that. That's not David Menuisier's style. I suspect he'll take his time with him, but he's got a really nice horse for next year. A stayer with a turn of foot, and he's lightly raced as well. Could be an awful lot more to come from this horse. It was a big effort from Master Builder to land the second contest. Overall time, not great, but what he did late in the race, very impressive. It became apparent through the meeting at Haydock on Friday and on into the big meeting on Saturday that on the straight course, a low draw was favourable. You wanted to be middle to far side rather than stand side. And the 2 sprints that we'll look at now, the Be Friendly and the Betfair Sprint itself, the Group 1, I think they aptly show us that low draws were preferable. So let's go to the Be Friendly first of all. And the success of Chagrin from stall number 4 beat Jurbat from 6, and there's American Affair from 11. You can immediately mark him up. He's had a tremendous season since finishing second to Desperate Hero at Hamilton, and he's run very well here, and we'll perhaps pick him up a little bit later on. So they came out of the stalls. Chagrin was 8th fastest into stride. He's 3 horses from the right-hand side of your screen with the sheepskin noseband. It took him 2.84 seconds. Jurbat, 10th fastest, 2.94. So the first and second, both quite slowly away, but they finished their races off nicely over on the far side. Let's see how this race develops then. Chagrin is going to get a bit of a lead. He's going to drop in as Looking for Linda, who was quickest out of the stalls, makes the running just towards this side of the track. Look at American Affair, yellow colours, Amy Wolf for Jim Goldie, almost last, exposed, no cover, racing keenly. He's a very fast horse, always does that. He's better with cover though, and he's on the wrong part of the track as it turns out. We should have all learnt a lesson from this race when it came to the Betfair Sprint Cup, that you needed to be over on the far side. This is an evenly run sprint overall, 102.63% finishing speed percentage, and the par's just over 101. So it's bang on even. This is not horses quickening, these are horses just maintaining their speed all the way to the line. 4th furlong for the winner, 10.87, and he's going to back that up with a 5th furlong, which doesn't seem very quick, of 12 seconds dead, his final furlong, but that was good enough, with rivals getting a little bit tired in and around him. But it was the 10.87 4th furlong that did it for him. So he's finished off the race 2.63% quicker than he ran the early part of it. So it's not a case of him quickening from in behind horses. He's just keeping on better than the rest of them, and we had quite a tight finish with plenty of them involved in the closing stages. Look at American Affair, wrong part of the track, left-hand side of your screen in the yellow. He's run an absolute screamer, this horse, and he can still win off his lofty mark, I think. He's gone up for defeats this season as far as the handicap is concerned, but there's going to be more to come from him. Win time, bottom of your screen here. It was a good time index, 7.24, above the average. It's analysed by the Race IQ data team as being fast, 58.28, 0.79, under what you would expect for a race of this nature. So Chagrin has run a good race here. Looking at this, you'd think 6 furlongs might suit him. Well, he won over 6 when he was with Clive Cox, now with Mick Appleby. But a fast run 5, that's what he got here. That really suits him. I'd say at this trip, he really needs a decent gallop. I think a stiff 5 really would suit him. What about possibly the Portland? I wondered if that might suit him over 5.5 at Doncaster. But it'll be interesting to see what the Mick Appleby team decide to do. And that man on board, Oisin Murphy, he is riding out of his skin at the moment. Winners galore for Oisin at the moment, and Chagrin didn't disappoint Mick Appleby and his supporters. Okay, from the Be Friendly Handicap, won by Chagrin, we will move on to the big race of the weekend, the Betfair Sprint Cup, which was won by Montassob for the William Haggas team. From stall 2, Kind of Blue from 6, and Unequal Love was, 5, and Unequal Love from 6. So look where they all are on the track. Remember what we said as far as Chagrin was concerned, and Gerbat challenging middle to far side. That's exactly what happened here in the Betfair Sprint Cup as well. Okay, 0 to 20 miles an hour, always important in these big sprints. Montassob slowly up to 20 miles an hour. By design, I think, under Kieran Fallon. He was 9th fastest at 2.71 seconds. Kind of Blue, who was runner-up here, was 10th fastest at 2.72 seconds. So the first 2 home, sitting in behind what was a strong pace. It was quite a fiercely run sprint. Let's see how it pans out then. The fastest furlong, interestingly, for every single horse in the race is coming up. It was from the 5 pole, as they're about to hit now, to the 4. So you can deduce from that that the early pace was very strong. And this was not won by Montassob quickening wildly from the back of the pack. It was won by horses stopping in front of him being on the right part of the track, and him coming home more evenly than the rest. Now, at this point, horses towards the stand side are going well, and they're some of the more fancied ones. Inisherin just coming off the bridle in the yellow. Yellow Whitecap, elite status. Both of those really fancied, along with Swing Along, who's on the rail, but they just look like they're in a quagmire. They just can't go forward when they're put under pressure. Those horses there, highlighted, don't really figure in the closing stages. There's the first 3 towards the middle of the track. Importantly, I think, given quite patient rides, given the very strong nature of the gallop in this race, but being that side was definitely important. I think we've seen enough evidence of that from the Chagrin race and this. So what happened late on? Well, 10.75, furlong 3 from Montassob, and he backed it up with a 10.77, and that's what took him through the field, and then he ran evenly through that final furlong, pricking his ears and idling a little bit to see off Kind of Blue. We know it was strongly run, and we know he didn't finish that strongly because his finishing speed percentage is 99.18. So he's under 100. So he's slowing down, but he's not slowing down as much as his rivals all around him. He's an admirable horse, this fella, for the William Haggas team. Normally thought of being best with a bit of cut in the ground. I think he's best when he gets a strong gallop and he can be dropped in and he can finish off that gallop. That's what really suits him. And you have to conclude he won with a little bit in hand here. I think he just does what he wants to. Win time, 1:10.31, 1.27 under par. Really good time index score, best score of the meeting for Montassob. And Ascot beckons, you would have thought, wouldn't you? The Kipco sprint in October is the obvious place for him to go. He'll get a bit of cut. He'll probably get quite a good gallop to go at as well. The fastest horse in the race, just for information purposes, the top speed was achieved by Kind of Blue, the runner-up in that second furlong, of 42.57 miles an hour. That second furlong, the fastest in the race for every single runner. Nice performance from Unequal Love, giving William Haggas a 1-3 in the race. But it's Montassob and Kieran Fallon who won the Betfair Sprint Cup. He was absolutely delighted. He was on home turf, of course. He's a Wigan lad, and he was absolutely delighted with that. And we'll see Montassob at Ascot, I have no doubt about that. He was aided by track position, and he was aided by being held up in quite a strongly run sprint. But nonetheless, he's a very talented, fast horse. Now, a few weeks ago, we featured Luther. here on the verdict when he finished runner-up at Salisbury. He had absolutely no chance the way the race was run that day. Thought he was worth following, and he's duly obliged at Haydock on Saturday from stall 3. He beat Killing Queen from 8 and Eternal Elixir from 7. This was the listed Ascendant Stakes, and this is a nice horse for the Charlie Fellows team. It was an interesting race to analyse as far as the race IQ data is concerned, because it's what I'd describe as an OXO race, really. They went fast for the first 3 furlongs, so they were effectively against the par sectionals that the race IQ scientists put together. They were in the green zone. They then slowed right down for the next 3 furlongs. They were very steady for the next 3. It was in the blue zone. It was very slow. And then they were quick, fast, green again for the last 2. So it was an interesting race. Fast to establish position, slowed down to fill up, and then kicked again in the closing stages. And Luther was able to win quite impressively from Killing Queen and Eternal Elixir. He's quite an interesting horse as far as the race IQ data is concerned. He's got a very high cadence. He spins his wheels really quickly, so he grabs the ground. I think he'll always just want ground that's not firm, but just with a little bit of ease. 2.29 strides per second for him, and well, that was the fastest cadence by some way in the race, and it enables him to quicken up in the back of the field. 7th furlong, 11.54, fastest in the race for Luther. Then the 8th furlong, his final furlong. It'll seem like it's a bit slow, rather like Chagrin, 12 seconds. Well, he's 12.15, but it's way too much for his rivals. And there's some decent ones in there. Age of Gold in the Godolphin Blue, he'd run really well at York. But look at this horse quicken in front, just hands and heels in the closing stages. This is a very nice performance from him. Killing Queen did well from the back of the field, held up last and ran on quite well late on. But Luther is cantering in behind horses and just wants to find a bit of running room in the black cap, and eventually he gets out. The final 2 furlongs were 23.69. Was really good, quicker than his rivals by some way. So that turn of foot that he showed with that 11.54 penultimate furlong was way too good for all of them in here. In a race that was a bit messy, some of them wouldn't have liked the messy nature of it, the sort of fast, slow, fast nature, but it didn't bother Luther one iota. And I put it to you that he was way better than all of these. I was a big fan of Age of Gold and his run at York when he came from off the pace and in a much bigger field, ran on strongly late on. I think he's disappointed. I'm sure he's better than the bare result. But this is a nice horse. His win time, 1:42.11. It's 1:05 above the Race IQ pass. So the Race IQ data would expect a better performance in a listed race over a mile at Haydock on this ground. But we didn't get it on the clock because of that messy nature of the race, that fast, slow, very slow, fast nature. And that doesn't lend itself to a decent final time. And the overall time analysis would be that this was a slow time, a slow race. But this is not a slow horse. He's a one with a fine turn of foot, and he's lightly raced, and there's more to come. Okay, that's Haydock done and dusted. Let's concentrate on a good card at Kempton Park on Saturday afternoon. Here's the card that we enjoyed here on Racing TV. The Unibet Sirenia Stakes was the opener, Group 3 over 6 furlongs for 2-year-olds. The September Stakes, Group 3 over a mile and a half at 2:35. There was a good handicap, the London Mile Series handicap. That was a race that was very much affected by a steady gallop. Nursery at 3:45, and then with 3 handicaps, 6 furlongs, mile and a half, and 2 miles to end the card. And when we have a look at the Race IQ time index for Kempton, you'll see that the final race produced a really good time. Coco Royale was that horse who put up that good time, and the Sale did a good time as well. I'm going to concentrate on Symbol of Strength and Kalpana. Those times were pretty good. The going was standard to slow, but I would suggest that it was more standard than standard to slow looking at those. Now here are the indexes for the whole of the Kempton meeting, and you can see those last 2 times are pretty good. A Sale and Coco Royale, 2 horses perhaps worth keeping an eye on. We don't often get fast times over trips of a mile and a half plus at Kempton, but we did there in those couple of contests. We're going to concentrate on the first 2 races though, because they were both Group 3s. We've got the 2-year-olds with a time index score of 6.4, and the Kalpana race, the September Stakes, 4.5 7.4. It's a poor time. That's courtesy of a very steady gallop. And we'll get to that. But let's go to the 2-year-olds first in the Sirenia Stakes, which was the opening contest on the card. And it was won by Symbol of Strength. It was a big drifter in the market from stall 4. Jouncey from 10 was second. Brian was third from stall number 6. It was thought that Symbol of Strength might go off around about odds on, but he was returned around about the 5-2 mark, I think, in the end. So he was a horse who people didn't want. Jouncey has run a big race. Stall 10, the wide outside, got a terrible trip, was forced wide, used loads of speed in the early part of the race, yet still managed to finish second. Well worth keeping an eye on going forward, Jouncey. This was a huge effort from this horse. So we'll take it in the early stages with Jouncey going forward, Symbol of Strength tucked in, just getting a little bit of a lead in those yellow and green colours. Overall, this time was okay. It was 0.31 seconds under the race IQ par at 1:12.03 and just above the meeting average as far as the race IQ time index was concerned. And it was quite a strongly run 2-year-old contest. The winner was able to pick up a little bit in the latter stages, 103.52% his finishing speed percentage. So 3.52% quicker in the last 2 furlongs that he's getting to now than the rest of the race. And he did that with an 11.47 fourth furlong, an 11.18 fifth furlong. That's where he's quickened a little bit from midfield to go and get to Jouncey. And then he's just kept going, really, through that final furlong. He hit 40.49 miles an hour when he did that 11.18. That's quite impressive speed from him, from mid-division. Brian finishing down the outside. He was the fastest horse through the final 2 furlongs. He was quicker than the winner, and he was quicker than the runner-up as well. But he performed from much further back, so he ran those quick furlongs from further back in the field, and it wasn't good enough to propel him to the front. Overall, I think this race has been won by Symbol of Strength, just keeping going better than his rivals. He did show a little bit of a turn of speed with that 11.18, but he just kept rolling once he got moving. And Adrian Keatley, his trainer, said that he wasn't necessarily suited by the surface. He felt he probably wants decent ground on turf, and perhaps he's just getting his toe in a little bit here at Kempton, where they dig it reasonably deep, and it might just have been too deep for him. So he couldn't really flash any more speed than he showed because perhaps the surface was impeding him. As far as the future's concerned, he said, it depends on the ground. It's all ground dependent as far as Symbol of Strength is concerned. He wants decent ground for him. He could look at something like the Middle Park, where he'd have to step up on what he's done here for sure. But if you've got decent ground, they might just throw their hat into the ring with Symbol of Strength. He's had a pretty good season. Adrian Keatley has, particularly with his 2-year-olds. And this horse ground it out, really, to win. But don't be too fooled by him just sort of staying on dourly. He did show a little bit of a turn of foot with that 11.18 furlong. So he does have a bit of speed, which might be better, seen to better effect on a faster surface. Nice looking horse, and there could be a bit more to come from him. I don't think any horse has featured more on the verdict than Kalpana, a filly who I had a look at and analysed when she won by 10 lengths on her debut this season at Newmarket. She featured when she won the Glasgow Stakes last time at Hamilton, and she's in again, taking the September Stakes from stall 7, beating Lion's Pride from 5 and God's Window from stall number 3. She's a thoroughly progressive and likeable filly for the Andrew Balding team. PJ McDonald was the man on board. Race IQ data shows that Lion's Pride was slowly into strides, didn't get to 20 miles an hour very quickly, but he soon goes forward. He's a horse who's got a good record on this surface at this track. And you can see, without having a look at any data, that this is a steadily run affair. Kem Hahn taking him along in the early stages of the race, and there was absolutely no gallop on at all. Now, that's interesting for Kalpana, because this filly, when she won at Newmarket, she beat Align the Stars, who went on to win a big handicap at Goodwood. She won 10 lengths, and she won by staying. She just kept on galloping in what was an evenly run contest. She just kept rolling that day, and she looked like a thorough stayer. And it was the same on her next couple of starts, including in the Ribblesdale at Royal Ascot when she was third. She looked a thorough stayer. But last time out, the Glasgow Stakes at Hamilton, She showed a bright turn of foot. That's why she featured on the verdict. She showed something there that she'd never shown before. She just looked like a strong stayer. But in the Glasgow Stakes that was very slowly run, she quickened up very nicely in the closing stages. And she does that here. She repeats the dose. And she's really added that string to her bow. Looking like a stayer, looking like a galloper, but actually she's got a real good turn of foot. Kemhan is taking them through 5 consecutive furlongs above 13 seconds. Really, really steady down the back straight. They're not going a gallop at all, and it's going to be about who can quicken the best. The first 7 furlongs rated as very slow as against par by the Race IQ data, but the final 5 furlongs rated as fast. So you can see from the data exactly where they picked the pace up. Steady for 7, much quicker for 5 furlongs. That's where they quickened. And now Kalpana's just taking a little while to get into stride, tracking Lion's Pride. But watch what she does in the straight. She's not a dour stayer at all, as we thought when she won at Newmarket, but she's quick. 10th furlong, 11.12. Followed by an 11th furlong, get this, 10.88 from this filly. And Lion's Pride cannot live with her as she fires that 10.88 to the furlong pole, and then she runs on strongly all the way to the line. She's seemingly developed this turn of foot as she's got stronger and as she has developed with racing, and it's going to see her compete well in Group 1 company against fillies and mares, I think. This is a tremendous effort from her, and as PJ McDonald said afterwards, she seems to be getting better and better. Her finishing speed percentage, you can probably guess this, way over 100. Way over because of that 7 furlong crawl early on. 114.73, so she's 14.73% quicker in the final 3 than the rest of the race. That tells us a few things. The rest of the race was a crawl. She saved energy early on, but she was also able to quicken and finish really well in the closing stages. And okay, this might not have been the strongest September Stakes you've ever seen. Lots of good horses have run in this, notably Enable. But she's done it well. She couldn't do any more than she did. She won by more than 4 lengths. She's beaten a horse who's suited by the track and likes the place, and she's done it in style. I think she is a very nice filly going forward. I'm sure the fillies and mares at Ascot will be on the agenda for her at the end of the year in October. Her win time was nothing flash, 2 minutes 33.84. She's 0.83 above the Race IQ standard. But don't worry about that. It's what she did in the final 3 furlongs. She destroyed the field, and you're looking at a filly who's potentially a Group 1 winner in waiting. So that wraps up the verdict for this week. I hope you enjoyed looking back, particularly at Haydock Park. There was some very interesting racing. Master Builder, very nice winner for David Menuisier. Horse who showed a fine turn of foot. And indeed, that was the feature of the verdict this week. As far as the sprints were concerned, well, Montassob and Chagrin were both involved in strongly run sprints and both just stayed on too strongly for their rivals, running evenly to the last couple of furlongs to land the spoils. A big win for Montassob, Group 1 glory for him and for William Haggis. I thought Luther was pretty impressive. He travelled strongly in the Ascendant. He's another one who was able to quicken up in what was a messy race. And then we had Kalpana, who was brilliant, I thought, in the September Stakes. A lot of people won't really like the performance because of the steady gallop early on, but you've got to love the way she quickened late on, and she's a filly who's going to go on to much better things. So lots of horses to follow out of the verdict this week. Do have a look at my verdict extra column. Will be on the website on Wednesday. But for now, I'll see you next week.